Let me ask you something uncomfortable. Have you ever trusted someone completely, only to realize later they were never built for loyalty in the first place? Not because you failed, not because you weren't enough, but because you invested in someone whose patterns were never designed to stay faithful. Here's the truth most men learn too late. Loyalty is not promised by words, it's predicted by patterns. Most men don't lose relationships because of one mistake. They lose years because they confuse hope with evidence, emotion with character, potential with reality. They believe loyalty is something you earn, something you inspire, something you prove yourself worthy of. But loyalty doesn't work like that. You don't negotiate loyalty, you observe it. And the red flags we're about to talk about are not about bad days, past mistakes, or temporary confusion. They're about long-term psychological patterns. Patterns that repeat no matter who she's with. And once you see them clearly, you stop trying to save relationships that were never safe to invest in. Let's start with the first one, the most common and the most ignored. Red flag number 1. She thrives on male attention. This one hides in plain sight. She's friendly, she's social, she's just being herself. But there's a difference between being attractive and being addicted to validation. Here's the psychology. When a woman's self-worth is outsourced to attention, loyalty becomes fragile because commitment limits attention, and she needs constant supply. She enjoys compliments. Flirting feels harmless to her. Male attention energizes her, not because she wants to cheat, but because she needs to feel desired. And here's the pattern you should notice. Attention becomes more important than protecting the relationship. She doesn't shut things down clearly. She leaves doors slightly open. She enjoys being wanted, even when she's taken. And over time, that hunger doesn't disappear. It grows because validation addiction is never satisfied by one person. If you've ever felt like you were competing with the entire world for basic exclusivity, this is why. And it leads directly into the second red flag. Red flag number 2. She has no accountability for past relationships. Listen carefully when she talks about her past. Not what happened, but how she frames it. If every ex was toxic, every relationship damaged her, and she was always the victim, that's not bad luck. That's a lack of self-reflection. Here's the psychology. People who externalize blame never correct behavior. If nothing was ever her fault, nothing ever changes. And loyalty requires responsibility, because staying faithful means owning your choices, even when tempted. Let me give you an example. She talks about betrayal, drama, chaos, but never mentions what she tolerated, what she contributed, what she learned. There's no insight, no growth. Just a pattern of disappointment that somehow follows her everywhere. And here's the rule you should remember. No accountability in the past means no accountability in the future. Because loyalty isn't about intention, it's about ownership. And if someone can't own yesterday, they won't protect tomorrow. Which brings us to the third red flag, where loyalty starts becoming negotiable. Red flag number 3. She redefines boundaries when it benefits her. This one is subtle and dangerous because it doesn't start big. It starts with language. It's not cheating if it didn't mean anything. You're overreacting. Here's the psychology. When boundaries become flexible, morality becomes situational. Loyalty stops being a principle and turns into a convenience. She justifies emotional closeness with others, downplays inappropriate behavior, redefines rules after crossing them. Not because she's cruel, but because desire overrides consistency. And this is the pattern to watch. Rules bend under opportunity. What's unacceptable today becomes complicated tomorrow when temptation appears. And once loyalty becomes negotiable, it's no longer reliable. Before we continue, pause here for a second. Ask yourself this. Does she have consistent standards or convenient ones? Because consistency is the foundation of trust, And without it, loyalty collapses under pressure. In part 2, we're going deeper. We'll talk about backup options, emotional chaos, casual dishonesty, and why some people confuse instability with passion. If this already feels familiar, comment "I ignored that red flag" and like the video if you believe patterns matter more than promises. Let's continue. By now, something should be clear. None of these red flags are about one bad decision. They're about patterns that repeat when no one is watching. Loyalty doesn't disappear overnight. It erodes quietly. And the next red flags reveal what happens when desire, insecurity, and opportunity start to mix. Red flag number 4. She keeps exes and orbiters close. This isn't about being mature, and it's not about being insecure. It's about emotional insurance. Here's the psychology. When someone keeps former partners, ex-flings, or clearly interested men close, they're maintaining options. Not necessarily to cheat, but to never feel without supply. She tells you they're just friends, that you have nothing to worry about. But the real question isn't trust, it's intention. Because loyalty requires exclusivity, not just physically, but emotionally. And the pattern is simple. Options are valued over focus. When backup plans exist, commitment weakens. Not because she wants to betray you, but because she's never fully all in. And that leads directly to the next red flag. Red flag number 5. She craves drama or emotional chaos. At first, it feels like passion, high emotion, intense conversations, ups and downs that feel alive. But here's the psychology. Some people mistake emotional volatility for connection. Stability feels boring to them. Peace feels unfamiliar. So they create tension, arguments without clear cause, sudden mood shifts, statements like, "Something just feels off." And notice the pattern. Chaos replaces intimacy. Instead of building trust, the relationship becomes a roller coaster, and loyalty struggles in chaos. Because when emotional regulation is missing, impulses take over. People who thrive on drama often seek stimulation outside the relationship when things feel too calm. Which brings us to a quieter but more dangerous red flag. Red flag number 6. She lies casually about small things. This one rarely gets attention. Because the lies seem harmless. White lies, exaggerations, stories that don't quite line up. Here's the psychology. When truth becomes negotiable in small moments, it becomes optional in big ones. Casual dishonesty is a rehearsal, not for cheating, but for self-justification. She's comfortable bending reality to avoid discomfort, and over time, that comfort grows. The pattern is simple. Small lies predict big ones. Because loyalty requires integrity when temptation appears, and someone who lies easily has already crossed that line internally. Now let's talk about insecurity and how it quietly invites betrayal. Red flag number 7. She needs constant reassurance. Reassurance feels loving at first. You compliment her, you affirm her, you remind her she's chosen, but it never seems to be enough. Here's the psychology. When insecurity runs deep, external validation becomes necessary. She needs to feel chosen daily. And when reassurance fades, attention becomes tempting. Not because she wants to hurt you, but because insecurity searches for proof. The pattern looks like this. Comparison to other women. Sensitivity to perceived neglect. Anxiety when attention shifts. And here's the risk. When validation is the fuel, temptation becomes attractive. Because loyalty feels fragile when self-worth is unstable. Which leads to the next red flag, the one that reframes commitment itself. Red flag number 8. She frames loyalty as restriction. Pay close attention to this language. You're being controlling. Why do you care so much? I don't like feeling limited. Here's the psychology. When commitment feels like a loss of freedom, resentment grows silently. Loyalty becomes a cage, not a choice. She resists exclusivity, pushes back against boundaries, questions expectations. And the pattern is clear. If loyalty feels like restriction, it will eventually be resisted because no one protects what they secretly resent. Before we move on, ask yourself this. Does she see loyalty as alignment or as limitation? Because that answer predicts everything that comes next. In part 3, we'll talk about the final 2 red flags, the ones that reveal true character under temptation. And then we'll cover the mindset shift that keeps men from investing in the wrong person ever again. If this is resonating, comment "still listening." And remember, you don't avoid betrayal by being perfect. You avoid it by choosing wisely. Let's finish this. At this point, one thing should be clear. Loyalty doesn't disappear randomly. It collapses under pressure. And the final red flags don't show up when everything is easy. They show up when temptation appears and boundaries are tested. This is where character reveals itself. Red flag number 9. She tests you through disrespect. This one is often misunderstood. It doesn't look like hatred. It looks like playful behavior. Here's the psychology. Some people test boundaries to see what consequences exist, not consciously, not maliciously, but instinctively. She disappears without explanation, flirts in front of you, provokes reactions, then watches. And here's the pattern. Disrespect comes before disloyalty, because loyalty requires respect first. If she learns that boundaries can be crossed without consequence, those boundaries will continue to move. And over time, what starts as testing becomes behavior. If respect drops, loyalty follows. Which brings us to the strongest red flag of all. Red flag number 10. Her behavior changes when opportunity appears. This is the final filter, because loyalty that depends on circumstances is not loyalty. Here's the psychology. Temptation doesn't create character, it reveals it. When new attention appears, when a high-value opportunity enters the picture, watch what changes. Sudden secrecy, protecting her phone, different energy. Not because she's already cheating, but because her loyalty is conditional. And here's the pattern. If behavior shifts with opportunity, faithfulness is situational. True loyalty doesn't fluctuate based on options. It remains consistent when alternatives appear. And this is where many men get stuck. They wait for proof of betrayal instead of noticing the shift in behavior. But by the time betrayal is obvious, the cost has already been paid. Here's the truth most men avoid. Loyalty isn't something you inspire in the wrong woman. It's something you select for. You can be attentive, supportive, patient, and still lose to someone who triggers desire at the right moment. Because loyalty is a trait, not a reward. And once you understand this, you stop trying to prove yourself. They try to earn loyalty by overgiving. They ignore early discomfort and wait for certainty. They believe patience fixes character. It doesn't. Character reveals itself under temptation, not comfort. You don't negotiate loyalty. You observe it. Here's how you protect yourself. Watch behavior under temptation, not under calm conditions. Set boundaries early, not after resentment builds. Walk at the first pattern, not the last betrayal. And choose peace over intensity, because intensity feels exciting, but peace feels safe, and loyalty thrives in safety. The man who can walk away never needs to beg for loyalty. Some women don't betray because of you. They betray because of who they are when desire meets opportunity. Loyalty isn't rare, discernment is, and the earlier you recognize patterns, the less damage you have to repair later. You don't win by enduring betrayal. You win by choosing better. If one of these red flags felt uncomfortably familiar, comment, "I ignored that red flag." If you believe loyalty starts with self-respect, like the video. And if you'd rather choose right than recover later, subscribe. Because the right person doesn't test your loyalty. They protect it.